And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
What's up, y'all? How's it going? To us, for listening. It's been kind of a eventful week for the Bucs. For the past couple of weeks, they finally hired an OC. It was a Super Bowl weekend, obviously, but we'll get into all that. First, I'd like to introduce my wonderful co-hosts, Musab Tariq. We'll start with you. Say what's up to the people.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, RBLR Nation? Always a pleasure to be out here with the boys. I'm doing well indeed. Obviously, with the Super Bowl being over, a little sad knowing that, the off season has officially started. But that's really about it, though. But Zach, how you feeling?
Man, I feel kind of the opposite. I'm excited for the offseason to get started. We've been in kind of off-season mode as Bucs fans for a little while now, and it's good to see that we're going to be able to actually see stuff happen now.
Yeah, that's a good point. Finally, some gears are going into motion. We're seeing that across the league, but especially for the Bucs for real. So that's going to be exciting. Definitely some free agent signings, trades, coaches being hired, as we've already seen. And we'll get right into it. We'll get right into that. The Bucs hired their new OC, Dave Canales. He was the quarterbacks coach in Seattle. His big projects were Geno Smith this past year and Russell Wilson for a very long time. He was kind of Pete Carroll's guy in that regard on the offensive side of the ball. He was one of the coaches in USC, and then he moved with Carroll into Seattle when Pete Carroll made the jump. And, it's exciting. It's exciting to finally see the Bucs make a hire, make a decision. We're not kind of in this weird transition mode where we're kind of wondering on. We don't have to worry about the fact that it's such a horrible position that he's being put in. It's his problem now. We ain't got to speculate about it no more. So what do y'all think about this? He also brought on Brad Idzik as a wide receiver coach. He was the assistant wide receiver coach. So how are y'all feeling about this? How does this affect the team moving forward? How does this affect the QB search? Obviously, the quarterback position's in flux. Zach, we'll start with you. Kind of some overall thoughts or maybe anything specific that you want to say about the OC getting hired.
Yeah, I think that it's good to finally see someone get hired. Not at all someone that I would have expected to be the OC. We actually had a question on Twitter from Bucs Report asking if it maybe was kind of like a what was the word he used, a backup, like a safety hire for the offense or for the front office. So I don't know. I'm not sure what to expect from him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question posed by them because, we'll get into some other NFL news, but, they lost out some other candidates that maybe they were looking at. Kellen Moore went to LA. Todd Monken, the guy that they were interviewing from Georgia, he was hired by the Ravens. So where there were options out there that they just lost out on to other teams that had more attractive and more lucrative positions. So that's a great question. Musab, how about you? How are we feeling about this OC hire? How do you think this affects the team moving forward? Any general thoughts you got on this hire?
Well, for me, it's just, staying optimistic, especially just knowing that, he got the wide receivers coach with him behind his back. I don't know. I'm optimistic. I think it's more of a fresh start. I think, realistically looking at this right now, I am very thankful for our Super Bowl championship win. And we've had some great couple seasons, but it's time to rebuild, obviously with Brady gone and, we're still having some issues here and there. This is someone who's had experience, he's helped fix Geno up a little bit. He's had about over he's had 12, 13 years, with Pete Carroll. So I feel like this guy's experience can really help us out big time. It's going to take a little bit. It's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows this upcoming year, of course, or even the next year, honestly. But for me, it's just thinking, it's just time for a little bit more of a fresh start on the management side and the player side. Every championship team, can always look, amazing every single year. It really is. It's hard to look, after, I feel like, most of the time it's like after 2 years, you're having your own issues, really, So there's only special teams that, kind of last a little bit while, but clearly, with Tom Brady gone, we're not special at all. So for that reason, staying optimistic. At the end of the day, though, we'll see how it works out this upcoming season. This is his trial year, along with his guy behind him with the wide receivers coach. So we'll see how it goes. But as of right now, I'm just staying optimistic just because we have nothing to lose, guys.
Your optimistic sounds a lot like negativity.
Right, yeah. Your version of optimism is pretty dark, my man. I hate to see
it's more like optimism, but also staying real. You know what I'm saying? You can't be yipping and yapping everywhere saying, hey, Bucs got this. We got this experienced coach who trained Geno Smith. He's going to make Kyle Trask the next MVP of the NFL. But you also have to think that, I think this is just more of a development year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a good point. You definitely want to be optimistic, but as Musab's saying, you also got to be real. You also got to be realistic, look in the mirror, so to speak, and realize that this is not a talented roster. This is not a great team. Dave Canales has been a quarterback's coach for a while now for a reason. So, he might fizzle out, which kind of leads me to my next question, which is kind of going along with that negative or if you want to call it realistic attitude. How much longer does this guy last? I mean, do you think that, let's assume that things go really south, things go really poorly this season, which it looks like they very well could, and the Bucs do awful, they go 3-14 or something miserable, and Bowles gets axed. Do we see Dave Canales as being kind of a future guy? Or do we see maybe a new head coach being brought in and him saying, we're going to move on. I want to bring my own people in. So is this kind of maybe a 1-year hire? Zach, how are we feeling about his future prospects as opposed to just kind of how long do we think this guy lasts? Let's say that Todd Bowles gets fired. Does he last?
Yeah, to me, it feels like I think this kind of touches on the question from Bucs Report is if we think this is like a safe hire, is right. That if he doesn't last, like it's not a big deal.
For sure.
Or like we gave somebody a chance that we didn't know if he was going to work out. So it feels like if he does really poorly, or if Todd Bowles does really poorly, I don't see Dave Canales being like the next guy in line.
Right, for sure. Yeah, and that's a good point. I guess, yeah, I definitely don't see him being kind of the next head coach for sure. It'd definitely be interesting though if let's say that the Bucs do struggle this season, but maybe the offense shows some sparks, or maybe Kyle Trask seems to be kind of the guy moving forward. Maybe they do bring in a new head coach, but they hold on to Canales because he seems to have a connection. That era of the Winston era, they bring in Dirk Cutter, and he was kind of the promoted because he was the Winston whisperer, so to speak.
Yeah.
And, it'll be kind of interesting to see if maybe that kind of develops as well. Musab, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was say that's a good point though, because if he comes in and makes Kyle Trask a top 10 quarterback in the league, like obviously that's stretching it. Like I don't assume that he's going to be even a top 15 quarterback in the league.
Right.
But if he does, I think that earns him some brownie points as far as, well, he made a guy who no one expected to be a top 10 guy in the league, a top 10 guy in the league, like he did with Geno Smith. Right. Realistically, no one expected Geno to be what he was this year. So to say that he has potential is I think a fair shout.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a great point. For sure. But Musab, how about you? Do you think maybe you think differently? Maybe you think no matter what he does, that if a new head coach is brought in after Bowles presumably gets axed after this year, assuming of course that the Bucs do so poorly, do you think right, fingers crossed, do you think that maybe Canales goes with him, or do you think that a new regime is going to be not forced but maybe encouraged to keep him staffed on the staff?
Honestly, I am 50% on kind of those two questions, and I have to say 50% why. The first answer is just because Todd Bowles goes down doesn't mean I think he's going to go down. It's really up to him to see, how he actually does. Sure. It's more of a front office smart move, From a front office perspective, I'm thinking, if anyone really knows this guy and he actually did the best he could, you want to keep him, And I feel like, a year is enough to really see how this guy actually does. Whether Todd Bowles, does an amazing job with this organization or not, that's another thing. But on the other hand, for me, I just think that the head coach position and all these assistant positions are completely different. The head coach is the face of this organization. You know what I'm saying? And he is kind of the final shot caller. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And especially looking at the lens of head coach and offensive coordinator positions, it really varies. You know what I'm saying? In my opinion, you have some guy like Bruce Arians, head coach and offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich. I just feel that Bruce Arians still really had a very whatever he said, that that was the way they were going to go. But just imagine if head coach and offensive coordinator both have a lot of experience. They've seen a lot going on. You have to respect it. You have to respect both sides of the end. So for me, I don't know. That's a tough question. This is his trial year, Carter. So for me, I'm just staying hopeful that everything works out. I think honestly, the big thing, guys, is the QB situation. Okay, because we already mentioned it right now already. He was, we worked under Pete Carroll, seeing Russell, he even worked with Gino as well. I don't know how it's gonna work with what we have, So that is something to think about, and that is kind of my question to y'all too. Is do y'all really have any kind of good idea as to where we're leaning with this QB situation? Because I see some talk on Twitter and stuff, but nothing's too appealing for me at the moment. But thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great point because Russell Wilson and Geno Smith are very different quarterbacks than who Kyle Trask is.
Yeah.
I mean, Kyle Trask is about as immobile as, he's probably about similar mobility wise to Tom Brady, and that's
Yeah.
not a good thing. They're very much pocket passers. And that's not to say that Geno Smith is necessarily the same ilk as Russell Wilson, super improviser, scrambler type of guy, improvising all the time, getting out of the pocket. But, he's definitely more mobile than Trask and Brady are. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that quarterback position develops. I mean, maybe they do go. I don't want to say they go Anthony Richardson, but it's definitely something to consider just because – they're not bringing this guy in for no reason, hopefully. So, maybe they do have a plan in place. Zach, how are we feeling about it? Musa brings up a great question. It definitely impacts the QB position decision a lot.
Yeah, I think that it greatly impacts the QB situation because I've heard, or I've seen, not heard, but I've seen rumors on a guy like Drew Lock coming in who backed up Geno Smith last year, who has not really proven himself, but it's a guy that Canales has worked with. To me, it feels like he's going to want to bring in his own guy. That's just like, we hired a QB coach. I feel like it sounds good to be like, we brought in a QB coach to help Trask. But if I'm a QB coach, I want to bring a QB that I trust or that I know. So I guess in my mind, it's like, I think it does affect it in terms of we're probably going to get a look at somebody else at quarterback.
That's a great point. The QB coach point is a great thing to think about because, it's not like they're bringing in a running game coordinator or wide receiver coach or any other position. They brought in a quarterback coach, and that's something definitely to think about, especially because, part of the reason they're bringing him in is because he's had such success because Russell Wilson was not a super highly coveted quarterback coming out of college. He was a 3rd round pick or 4th round, whenever he was. It wasn't a 1st round pick, so he's definitely done some great work with quarterbacks. So it'll definitely be interesting to see if they decide to kind of move in a different direction with the quarterback position. But since this was kind of a safety choice, or as we're calling it, kind of a safe option or maybe a fallback, is that maybe playing into the whole, like we talked about this a lot in the previous episodes, but maybe it's because this position was so unappealing. Does that play into why it was such a safe choice or kind of a fallback option? Zach, we'll start with you. How much of a factor do you think that played into it?
I feel like that had to have played a role in it.
Right.
Not only just the quarterback, but just the stability of the whole coaching staff.
Right.
I feel like that has to play a little bit of a role in it, and it felt like nobody else wanted the job. I think we touched on it last week, or maybe it was in the group chat. Like, we've had 9 or 10 different interviews with potential offensive coordinators.
Yeah.
So I've never seen anywhere else where you get that many applicants or that many interviews done, because normally the first or second guy that gets interviewed gets the job. So it just felt like maybe we were getting turned down, and I would have to believe that the quarterback situation plays a major role in that, because they don't know what they're getting. They're getting something that nobody knows aside from the Bucs front office.
Right. And not only the quarterback position, but really the roster in general.
Yeah.
I mean,
Cap space.
the cap space is non-existent. The offensive line is very much in flux. They've got Evans and Godwin, but who knows what to make of that running back room. I mean, there's a lot of very iffy, kind of questionable positions right now on the offensive side of the ball. And the offense was already awful last year. I mean, it was it was the worst running team in the NFL, and it wasn't exactly great in the passing game either. They were not putting up a lot of points, and now it's getting even worse. So, it's a tough proposition. Musab, how about you? How much of a factor do you think the appealing nature or the unappealing nature of this position played in the fact that they had to pick kind of a safe option?
No, I think it was the best move they could do right now. And now that I really think about it, as Zach mentioned, with the whole Drew Lock situation, I see that making sense a little bit, but it just comes down to, as Buccaneer fans and, even with front office, how comfortable have we realized that we want to become with Kyle Trask? I think, we either are going to use him as much as we can, or it's just time to admit, honestly, for me, I'm just waiting for someone to admit that this was a bad choice. Month by month, my view changes on this guy. Believe me, it's a stinger to my heart, because I was all Trask trained at one point, but now that we're actually thinking about it, if this guy's barely getting any opportunities, we still got Blaine Gabbert. I'm just thinking, it's more of a Blaine Gabbert, Drew Lock situation. And when it comes down to that, what are your thoughts? Because I'm 50-50. Seriously, yeah. I mean, I have heard nothing special about Drew Lock for me. I mean, the guy did pretty solid in college, I guess, but I mean, he's never really opened my eyes in the NFL. And on top of that, Blaine Gabbert is just Blaine Gabbert.
Right.
I don't think that Drew Lock ever got the opportunity to really have like a solid team around him. In my opinion, I feel like he was kind of always like he was the scapegoat for Denver, and like Denver had a bad team, and I think that shows when you get a guy like Russell Wilson, who's been this perennial Pro Bowler, really good quarterback, and he goes to Denver and plays like trash. I think that it kind of shows just the team around him has a lot to do with it. And I mean, not that Tampa's much better of a team than Denver and like player wise, but I think that Drew Lock is a guy that I've always had confidence in, and I would not mind to see him. I would obviously like someone more proven, but if we're going to take a risk with someone, I'd rather it be someone who we've at least seen a little bit from.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it would be nice for them to. I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of QB names out there.
Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, right. Baker Mayfield. I mean, shoot, he was kind of playing well in LA towards the end there. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of names to consider. Sam Darnold as well, Jacoby Brissett, guys that could be brought in. But it really comes down to cost, because the Bucs, like we keep talking about, the salary cap situation is difficult. So, I mean, are there any the quarterback position is the most important position in football. So I hate that we're going to have to keep talking about it, but it's important. So we're going to have to keep bringing it up. Are there any names that maybe jumped out at you this past week? Any new guys that maybe entered the fold that you're like, I mean, other than we talked about Drew Lock, but anybody else? Zach, we'll start with you. Are there any names that you maybe heard thrown out there that you were like, oh, okay, that's kind of fun?
Yeah. So all jokes aside about Baker Mayfield, I know Carter and I have had this running joke because on one of my guest appearances before I became an actual Bucs podcaster here, I said Baker Mayfield was going to have a breakout season and he was going to be amazing, and I was a liar, and I take full responsibility for that. But I have heard Baker Mayfield as an option. I don't think he's going to be very expensive, and I think that he's at the point in his career where if he plays really well, he could be a franchise quarterback for multiple years. And if he doesn't play great, then he's a good bridge quarterback where we're not going to be great, but we're not going to be awful, which kind of puts you in a weird spot draft-wise because you're going to be right in the middle of the pack every year. So I think it's Baker Mayfield's name that sticks out to me because of the ability that he could be very good if he gets in the right system, and he could be really bad if he doesn't. So I think that that's a good name for us.
Yeah, Baker's definitely interesting. And I love what you said about the draft positioning, because you see it all the time with other teams. I mean, Denver had to pull the trigger on trading for Russ because, they were kind of stuck in this weird, we're going to go from Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock, and all these other different quarterbacks, Paxton Lynch. I mean, they never really got good draft picks. Yeah, I mean, we make jokes, but they were in some.
You're right, though.
Left. I mean, shoot, it was a tough time. Joe Flacco. I mean, good Lord. I
forgot about him. I didn't. Yeah, good Lord.
For sure. So definitely some tough names. But yeah, Baker Mayfield's interesting. I think Sam Darnold could be interesting. Jacoby Brissett would be fun. But
the Sam Darnold one is one that I haven't heard yet that actually kind of piques my interest a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it could be fun. Musab, how about you? Any names that we didn't mention, or maybe someone that we did that you want to focus on from the quarterback position for the Bucs moving forward?
For me at this point, I'm just open to a lot of kind of guys, honestly. But it just, for me, it just really comes down to experience.
He's basically saying anyone but Trask.
No, yeah, I want someone with experience, man. I want someone who's a dog, man. You know what I'm saying? Listen, man, I'm not some huge Baker Mayfield guy either, but if this is what it comes down to, man, then so be it. You know what I'm saying?
And that's fair.
Hey, listen, I think the big thing, guys, for me is someone like Baker, but I'm also thinking, more Jacoby Brissett, only because I think that the Buccaneers have a strong supporting cast on the offense. All right. We work a little bit with the offensive line, but we have some offensive weapons. And someone like Jacoby Brissett, who already has the experience. I know he's not all sunshine and rainbows, but I think we can make something happen. Basically, I just want a QB who knows, what he needs to do. It's one thing to have a crappy team and you're already a backup and everything, and you're already going through hell and stuff. But on the other hand, if you kind of learn some things and you build some chemistry, that's up to the players. But if you build some chemistry, I think some things can be decent. I'm not thinking, oh my God, whoever we snag, Baker, Jacoby, whoever, Drew Lock, we're looking at division champions or something. That's going to be hard to fight for as well right now. But
yeah,
listen, I just want to see some potential, right? I want to see some hope more than anything. As a Buccaneers fan, I just want to see that, we're actually doing something during this offseason to actually do better. We're not just kind of giving up and just saying, oh my God, all hell loose, Tom Brady's out. We're just struggling. You know what I'm saying? You can still make the right moves, It's really it all comes down to the front office, I guess. I don't know.
I want to throw something out there for you guys then, because I know a lot of people are talking about like a first-round quarterback like Anthony Richardson or, along those lines, someone like that. What is your guys' take on taking like a late-round flyer on a guy like Max Duggan, who's proven that he could play in big spots, granted for a smaller school, but he got that school there. So a guy like Max Duggan, a smaller school, when I say smaller school, I mean like you know what I mean? Like it's still a big school, but they're not a team that you see in the championship very often. So
we didn't championship this year either. Shoot.
I mean, fair. But I mean, a guy like that who put up good numbers in college and in all the mock drafts that I've been doing, he's around in the 6th, 7th round. Like, is that something that? What are the odds of a 7th rounder making the team at any other position? We just saw it with Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, came out and played very good because people underestimated him because of the school he went to.
Right, and I think that's a distinct possibility. I mean, the Bucs have a lot of roster holes to fill, so these
Yeah.
drafts are going to be incredibly important. I think that there are going to be a lot of draft day trades just to accrue more capital, just more picks, so
Yeah.
that they not have to worry about shelling out money in free agency. So yeah, backup quarterback position is definitely going to be something that they look at, even if it's just a third stringer or a guy that maybe they've stashed on the practice squad. So yeah, the name, he's a high profile name because he made it to the championship. I'm not sold that he's really a guy that's going to contribute at all in the NFL, but crazier things have happened, and
yeah, that's what I was gonna touch on. Like, I don't think anyone expected Brock Purdy to be that guy either. So I guess
sure.
that's where my head's at. Like, Brock Purdy obviously is just like a recency bias, obviously, but we just had a guy who was a 7th round pick and became the greatest of all time at quarterback on our team. So, right. Or 6th round pick, I think. I don't know whatever. He was a late round pick.
No, for sure.
But like seeing that, and I mean, hell, we just spent the last 3 years with a third stringer that we drafted in the 2nd round. So I think at this point, even if he happens to be a backup, like really a 6th or 7th round pick is not wasted, in my opinion, on that.
For sure. Musab, how are you feeling about it? You got anybody in the late rounds that you're thinking of, other than maybe Max Duggan, or maybe you are really high on Max Duggan?
I'll be honest with you. I'll take any kind of hidden gem in the later rounds if that's what it down to be. I'm just gonna be honest, man. Yeah, I'll take Max Duggan in the later rounds. Yeah, but this is not a priority for me, man. We need to get me I want me someone who's experienced. I want me someone who's experienced, who knows what's going on. I have a lot of listen, man. I have a lot of respect for some of these rookies, man, who turn out to be really well, and a lot of respect to Brock Purdy for being Mr. Irrelevant and, taking his team so far, along with the defense, of course. But this is not something, we don't fall downhill, or we don't go downhill and say, oh, okay, we're just going to, draft some, quarterback or whatever. It's fine. Hey, listen, I think, if we're going to get someone in the later rounds, I think for me, I want him to be more mobile. Whoever it is, I'm going to be honest with you, Zach. I don't know how mobile Max Duggan is, but I'm hoping he's more mobile than Kyle Trask.
I would say, I'd say he's more mobile than Trask.
He can make some magic happen. You know what I'm saying? Especially if he's going to be picked in the later rounds. But for me, I'm still going, someone who's experienced. I'm not going to say I want a veteran quarterback, but I want someone who's already put in some years. I am open to getting a later round quarterback if that is what the organization decides. But I don't know how to say this, but I'm kind of open-minded to what we do, but there are some ways to go about this. I'm not saying, okay, we should just be open-minded and get a kicker in the first round because special teams is the big game changer. I'm not saying that, but clearly I feel like, the fans and the organization themselves know where we lack right now. We're going to focus on that, hopefully. And whoever we get is, whoever we get. And, from there, we'll see how it is. But I think more than anything, it's a rebuilding year. Or, we'll say tabula rasa, more a little bit of a fresh slate. So that's how it is, honestly, It's kind of be a little bit too hard on the Buccaneers. More like, hey, listen, we've had our times and everything. And as a fan of any sport or as a fan of any team, you really have to realize that, whatever team you're supporting, they're not going to be winning for the next 10, 15 years. They're going to have their downfalls or whatever. That's where we're at right now, gentlemen. That's where we're at.
Well, it's not on the downfall is some RBLR merch. That is definitely never in rebuilding mode.
That's always upcoming, man.
That's right. It's always a first round pick. It's never going to be, they're never going to be in salary cap hell. It's always great. It's always some good stuff, Rays, Bucks, Lightning, Rowdies, whatever you're looking to shop for, they got it. We got it. Shop.rblrsports.com. The promo code is Cannon, CANNONS. It's 10% off your order. Obviously you're on a Bucs show, so maybe check out some Bucs stuff. But hey, we got all the other Tampa Bay sports as well. Rays Fan Fest is tomorrow. Maybe you want to maybe get inspired after the Rays Fan Fest, and you're like, oh man, I want some Rays gear. So whatever you're looking for, we got it. So that's our shop plug. But yeah, moving on. So kind of looking around the league. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the Bucs, but kind of making more of a broader perspective. Obviously, it was a Super Bowl weekend. So I want to hear y'all's thoughts on the Super Bowl because this we've been kind of low and dreary about the Bucs, but let's talk about something fun. Energy a little bit higher, just because talking about Dave Canales as the new OC. I mean, there's only so much you can say about it, right? So we'll move on to something a little more interesting, even if it's not necessarily Bucs related. So Kansas City obviously won. What y'all think of the holding call? I mean, that's kind of the big thing at the end. The James Bradberry holding call on Juju Smith-Schuster. How are we feeling about it? I mean, I know my own feelings, and I'm sure y'all, if y'all follow me on Twitter, y'all saw how awful I was. I have blocked the Twitter account because I got so frustrated about it. Zach, we'll start with you. What did you think of the holding call on James Bradberry?
Do I think it was a hold? Yes. Do I think it was a hold that should have been called? No. Like that's the best way I can describe it. It felt it seems like maybe I'm being led to believe it was a hold more so because James Bradberry came out and said, yeah, I held him. But when you were watching it live, like my instant gut reaction was BS. Like that wasn't a hold. They want Kansas City to win. But when Bradberry came out and said, yeah, I played that wrong, I held him, that's when my mind started kind of turning. Like I was like, okay, so maybe it was a hold, but 9 times out of 10, that gets let go. Like that's not a holding call that you see called most regular games. So why change the officiating up in the biggest game of them all? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
For sure.
Tell me you put money on the Eagles without telling me you put money
right.
on the Eagles.
Exactly.
No, hey, listen,
Exactly.
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. I will say 2 things, okay? First thing being that, was it a hold? Yes. Do I think it should have been called? No, because of how distant Juju actually was. It's one thing to say, oh, man, man, that guy could have had it, honestly. But no way, honestly, if Bradberry was just a little bit, a little bit hands off of Juju still would have not got that. And that's why I'm a little heated. But hey, listen, a hold's a hold. You have to call it. But then again, I'm honestly really 50-50 because then again, no one was making calls throughout the whole game. And then boom, bada bing, at the end of the game, they start making these calls, especially when the Kansas City Chiefs could have taken advantage of this.
Well, I mean, Philly got a lot of calls that game. Philly got a fair amount of calls. But my thing is with your uncatchable ball argument is that an uncatchable ball would be pass interference. It wouldn't be holding. So in order for it to be determined by if the ball was catchable, it would have to be pass interference. Holding it can be anywhere on the field, whether the ball was close or not.
Right. But I guess Musab, I get what you're saying though, Musab, because like the spirit of the rule is that holding is prohibiting a guy from advancing down the field and catching a ball.
It just happened. It just happened with like way too much in the beginning of the start of that little hike, and then it's the heat of the moment. You have to understand. It's not gonna be all like we're all not touching each other and we're all playing super clean. It's
Plus,
just
after
to think about, that call affecting the game big time. Because listen, I would be fine if they called the penalty, whatever. But listen, Kansas City kicks a field goal or whatever, and boom, they get the field goal. It's just crappy knowing that the Eagles didn't get a chance at all, man.
Sure.
These guys had 8 seconds to make something happen. Clearly, nothing is going to happen unless it's a 1 out of a million miracle. You know what I'm saying? So that was a kind of bummer for me. And I guess also it was a little bit extra bummer for me because I put a little money on the Eagles as well. Man. I was very optimistic.
We don't condone gambling until we have a sponsor.
Oh man, Vegas loves Mahomes. I'm not gonna go all gambling mode and all that, but I don't know, man. It just something seems a little off to me. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Nah, it's off to me too. Yes, especially after that Cincinnati game the previous week with the weird
Oh
replay
my
of the
God!
third.
Don't even get me started on that, Carter. Oh no!
Yeah,
Oh no! Oh
exactly.
my
I mean,
gosh!
it's a lot of stuff, and kind of bringing this back to the Bucs. Brady, we saw this with Brady's career when he was in New England. All the
But guys, may I just chime in very quickly and ask you this? You have to think about this. No matter whose fault it was on the Eagles. When Jalen Hurts kind of fumbled the ball or something, a little screw up ball, and then
Oh my
boom,
right,
God.
yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs went for the touchdown. Think about that. Just think about if they didn't mess that up. Whoever was responsible for that. Just
sure,
imagine if they didn't mess that up. The game would have been different. I don't know. Maybe that's what I think. So
yeah,
I
it's
am
tough.
honestly, I'm very extremely 50-50. On one side, I'm mad that the Eagles didn't win because, I got a little money down and I was really high, high hopes on the Eagles. I love Jalen Hurts more than I love Patty Mahomes, but I got to say, man, the Chiefs did ball out in the second half. You look at
Sure.
the stats and everything,
They
zero
played.
sacks allowed throughout the whole game. They did phenomenal, especially in the second half. So I do have to give credit to them, but oof, that was a stinger. That
I
was a
mean,
real interesting
they
game.
they played almost a perfect second half.
For sure. Right.
Like you can't. As much as I hate Patrick Mahomes, he played a very good second half.
Absolutely. Yeah. None of this is meant to take away from Kansas City winning, but good Lord, are they being dicks about it? My God. I
Oh
mean,
my God, Travis Kelce, who
yeah.
I love Travis Kelce. I
Yeah.
don't know why, but I love
Ooh.
him. But God, he's such a douche now.
Oh, God. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's anyone that I can think of that's gone from being so likable to being such an ass and being
Well,
so like,
especially
Yeah,
Juju was going
exactly.
off on Bradbury on Valentine's Day, and then the whole
oh,
league was going off
Oh,
on
that
Juju,
was
man.
hysterical though. I gotta
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
give
yeah, that
credit
was
where
funny,
credit's
man.
due.
But yeah, man,
That was funny.
Juju deserved all that, man. Just come on, man. Like, man, you scrape by. You scrape by. That was
Yeah,
Right.
that
he's
was the thing
reminding me.
for me. It's one thing if Patty Mahomes and the boys balled out that last drive and they got a touchdown, or they played it strategically and they just got a clean ass field goal, but the ending just seems so weird and just so leaning towards the Chiefs. I understand that they were looking hot in the second half, but what pissed me off was, first of all, they won, and then second of all, these guys are all acting like, like, oh my God, man, we
Yeah.
the Chiefs, we balling out, look at us, man. You got saved by James Bradbury, you got saved by the ref, you got saved by the Eagles' crappy coaching staff strategies. That's
And
what it is.
you got Juju out here, like you said, Juju out here talking trash. He literally pulled a Durant, went to a super team. Like
And he got
only
like,
have like
Yeah.
yeah, he
3 or
got like
4
recruited
catches
or
the whole
something,
game.
man. It wasn't like it was actually something that anyone really
Yeah.
wanted. Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, hey, that's a good little comparison, man. Being a Suns fan, I am, man. I am happy to have
Oh,
Durant. I
we
ain't
don't
gonna
even know.
lie,
We're not
but
talking NBA.
no, man, I like that little, Juju is to Durant as the Chiefs are to the Suns and the Nets, man. Yeah, so be it.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, regardless. But I liked the point you made about the Philadelphia Eagles coaching staff, because that brings us to our next point. Both of their coordinators have been hired away.
Yeah.
So as poorly as they did in that Super Bowl in the half, both the defensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator, the Cardinals hired the defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon to be their head coach. Shane Steichen is hired in Indianapolis. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely funny. Juju Smith-Schuster, good Lord, what an ass hat. I mean, just a TikTok wide receiver, doing all the dances, celebrating after, getting carried. Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. Travis Kelce may be acting like an idiot and a jerk, but, he had one of the best seasons by a tight end that I've ever seen. So, more power to him. It's definitely tough, but, that's how it be sometimes. Regardless, yeah, those two guys got hired. So that's kind of playing into more of the Bucs weren't able to get, anybody great, and those Eagles coordinators are getting hired away. Some more NFL news around the league. Derek Carr was officially released by the Raiders this past week. He was thinking about getting traded or something, but he said, no, I want an outright release. And so now, I mean, he's a great quarter. I mean, no, I don't want to say great. He's a great quarterback in the context of the options that the Bucs have for the quarterback position
Yeah.
right now. So how do y'all feel about his ranks amongst other quarterbacks in regards to the Bucs? But is he realistically really going to be affordable? So where does he rank in your quarterback power rankings, if you want to call them that, the Bucs? Zach, we'll start with you. Is he higher on the list, but maybe you think he's too expensive? How are you feeling about him?
So that's what I was just gonna say. I got it. Like my answer has to be a question back to you. Is it realistic, like power rankings, or just like if cap space wasn't a concern, my power rankings?
That's a good question. I guess you have to factor in the cap space realistically, just because, yeah, that's life. So yeah, that's a good follow up question.
So realistically, he's God. I don't know. See, like I feel like a jerk answering it this way because out of the free agents, like he's probably the most or the best, most realistic. I don't know how to explain it. I don't think that we're going to get him because I do think he's going to be too much, but I also like would put him in the category where he's not going to be a top paid quarterback. So
Right.
I'm putting him right at like 3. Plus, I'm hearing that he's interested in the Saints and he's got a meeting with the Jets. So it seems like he's not even talking to Tampa,
Right.
which kind of hurts my feelings a little bit. But
so.
Yeah, exactly. I would put him probably right at 3 for me right now.
Okay, I like that. Musab, how about you? Where is he stacking up near the top? Maybe you're not even thinking about him because of the cost. But when you factor in the salary cap situation, where does he kind of rank in your quarterback desirability, if you want to call it that?
Because I think the salary cap thing is a whole mystery to me. I think that is somewhat of a possibility, but then again, it's going to be a high cost. So for that reason, a little bit lower on my list than Zach. Would be nice though. I wouldn't mind it, but I think it's a little less possible compared to Zach, in my opinion. I don't know. I just don't see it for some reason. Honestly, Zach, I'm going to be honest with you. I see a little lock. I see a little lock situation happening.
You're welcome for putting that in your head.
Then a car situation. Yeah, I kind of like, I wasn't thinking about it before, guys, but if he is to get his wide receiver coach, with him as well, he snags Lock. He's kind of working. He's playing his cards right. And for me, I think honestly, the Buccaneers organization minus Todd Bowles and whoever we already have, I think this is time to give someone the opportunity to show us, does he have what it takes to, to be at the next level? You go from quarterback coach to assistant coach or offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator to head coach. So I think, times are changing and it's time to give someone who maybe not many people think, oh my God, he's an obvious offensive coordinator, to give him a shot. I think it's time to give some people, the opportunities, and that's really about it for me.
Yeah, Musab, you made a great point about the salary cap stuff and his cost, because Derek Carr had kind of a mediocre season last year with the Las Vegas Raiders. And, is he worth $25 million a year? No, he's not. But that's what he's probably going to get just because of how dry the quarterback market is. There aren't great options out there. The Jets are desperate. They're a good team. But good Lord, they had to suffer through Mike White, Joe Flacco, Zach Wilson, some really shoddy quarterback play. So they're willing to shell out a little extra cash just to get that position solidified. Because if they do, shoot, they could be a pretty interesting team next year. The Bucs are not in that situation. They are not a quarterback away. They're not a Derek Carr away from being a good team.
Exactly.
So, but y'all mentioned the Saints being a potential landing spot for Derek Carr. And let's say he does go to New Orleans. Does that change the Bucs' plans at all? Or do you think maybe the Bucs are not even paying attention to that kind of thing? But, if the Saints land Derek Carr, they have a pretty realistic chance at winning this division just because of how bad the rest of the division looks. So, do the Bucs say, all right, screw it, the Saints are probably going to, I don't want to say run away with it, but they've got a pretty solid shot at this. Let's maybe restock, reload. Let's just kind of ride out this tough year. How do we feel about Derek Carr landing in New Orleans as how it pertains with the Bucs' plans for this upcoming season? Zach, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think the Saints are more than a Derek Carr away from being a good team as well, though.
Right.
So, in my mind,
the NFC South.
Fair, but my thing is, they have just as many holes, if not more, to fill than Tampa. And they have a wide receiver who's making more money than almost anyone else ever for running like 3 slants a season. So it feels like if they were to sign Carr, I'm in my head, if I'm in the front office of Tampa, I'm not thinking, oh, they're going to run away with it.
Sure. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean that's a good point because they definitely do, like you said, they've got just as many salary cap situation, salary cap problems as the Bucs do, and they've got a really old roster too, so they're not getting any younger. So yeah, I mean that's a good point. I guess I didn't mean to say as if they were going to run away with it, but Derek goes to the Saints and they look like they could probably beat the Falcons and the Panthers and probably the Bucs because the Bucs just aren't going to be that loaded. So I guess that was more of my question. But yeah, that's a good point. They definitely need to focus more on their own stuff before they even worry about the rest of the division because
and that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, I think that Derek Carr makes the Saints better without a doubt. Like, no denying that. But I think that they have so many holes to fill that if they spend that money on Derek Carr, then they're going to be more screwed than us in the season coming up because then they have nothing. Like you have Michael Thomas who might play for you. Who knows at this point?
Right. Yeah, and who knows what they do with Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, I mean, with all his legal issues and the fact that he's going to be, if I'm not mistaken, a free agent. So
right. I mean, who knows with him. So yeah, that's a great point. Musab, how about you? Do you feel differently? Do you think maybe that the Saints have a pretty decent shot with Derek Carr at the helm? Or do you even really care because it's the Saints and who the hell cares?
No, honestly, yeah, I mean, I somewhat care, but I also don't care. I don't think that whatever happens with them is going to be anything special. I think whatever happens I think it's still going to be a dogfight. It's always been between us two, and I think even this upcoming season, it's really going to be between us two for real. I think we still have a shot. I guess we can be the division champs. We'll see how that goes as well, but it's going to be us two for sure. I have no regards for the Falcons and the Panthers, like at all, like 0%. I mean, if I take that back, man, like negative, like 100. You know what I'm saying? It's just us in the same as we're talking. And I think if they are a little bit ahead of us, it's only because of a few, dinks and doinks that we have. That's about it, though. I'm not paying too much attention to the Saints or to the rest of the league. I'm kind of just. I don't know. There's kind of a sense of me that is being a little bit more relaxed, saying, hey, listen, it's time to just admit that, you can't walk around yipping and yapping about the Buccaneers because it's about to be a rather random, weird, who knows how it's going to be kind of season, As week goes on, you stay happy with, how your boys are performing, but, you take the losses. I have I don't know. I've just kind of just turned to a little bit more of a laid back approach. But also, guys, you have to think about this. It's like, I'm talking like the beginning of the off season. You know what I'm saying? So everybody and their mother has an article out there right now about anything. You know what I'm saying? Kyle Trask to the Houston Texans. I'm sure there's an article out there that says Kyle Trask is going to Houston, Texas. I don't know where it is, but believe me, man, everybody and their mother is just writing about all these random weird off-season moves and everything. So for me, I'm trying to stay very limited about, what I'm reading and all that, thinking, as logically as I can about, these kind of hot takes that people have. Because, again, it is too early, As time goes on, we go week by week, we get closer to the draft day and the preseason all day, then I'll start getting a little bit more serious, I guess. Maybe that's what it is, I'm not trying to kind of, just joke around a little bit here and there. But then again, I mean, I don't know. Just we'll see how it goes. It's the start of the off season. Welcome to the, in my opinion, welcome to the shit show. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, I mean, shit show is a great way of putting it. But that's kind of bringing us to the end of this shit show, so to speak. But thank y'all for listening. If you've tuned in, Zach, actually, before we head off, Zach had a very important thing that he wanted to plug. Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get on here because this is like basically you guys are pretty much all my second family. Everyone listening. I'm doing a challenge thing this week. It's from today until the 24th, where we're trying to game for 30 hours in the week. And it's to support a cause that's very close to me called Stop Soldier Suicide. Being someone that was in the military for a little while, we are 57% more likely to commit suicide than someone that's not in the military. And Stop Soldier Suicide is a nonprofit that is aiming to reduce that by 40% by 2030. So I will be doing that. The link will be in the description for you to donate or for you to just come and watch a stream that I'll be doing. If you guys could do that, I would greatly appreciate it. And it'll just be something special for me that touches close to home.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Check out that link in the description. Zach, thank you for doing that. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Definitely a very, very important cause. Definitely check that out. Donate if you can, just whatever you can do to help for sure. That's definitely something really important to think about. Way more important than anything we just talked about. But anyways, thank you all for listening. If you listen to the end, you missed the most, you listened to the most important part. So good for you. But, hit that like and subscribe button. We're on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you're tuning in. Also follow us on all our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, at RBLR Sports. This is the RBLR Bucs podcast. And always,
Go on.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.